Hello and welcome to the Pop-Off PC Mag's video game show. I'm Jordan Miner. Games and more. I'm so sorry about what we're going to have to talk about, but
I'm fascinated.
It's okay. Will Greenwald, I know your time is limited, but we wanted to get you in here today to talk about this contraption, this lament configuration. GameScent? We can now smell video games?
GameScent, which you need to be careful about because either GamerScent or GameSense is actually a separate company that makes game-themed scented candles.
Gotcha. That sounds like a product that you can maybe be down for, but what is this? Sounds a lot more hostile.
This is a smart gaming AI-powered scent machine. Basically, it is a 6-chamber scented oil diffuser that does it with vibrating, whatever the term is called. Like it is like sonic.
He's pulling out little potions.
gas
You're pulling
diffusion.
out vials and potions now?
And there are 6 different scent flavors. There's racing cars, explosions, forest, storm.
Tell me more, or don't.
What do explosions smell like?
Well, that's a very good question. What it does, this wirelessly connects to a transmitter box that you plug between your game console and your TV or anything that has an audio output. It analyzes the sound coming through it, puts it through some cloud processing. I think it's PyTorch, a Python-based AI processing.
That sounds like a scent to me. A nice warm pie under a torch. Some
True.
wafting.
Well, you're talking about Python, so it's someday I'll learn that.
Some roasted snake.
Yep. And it figures out what you're going through, if you're in a forest, if there's a storm happening, if there's gunfire, if there are explosions, and it puffs up air to different extents to sort of reflect that. This is Storm. If anyone would like to get a little whiff of it.
Take a whiff of the storm. Why not?
That's a scent, all right.
Yeah.
That definitely smells like a thing.
It
smells intense. It's very intense.
Honestly, I've tried it a little bit. It gave me a headache and I'm not a fan, but I'm gonna try to give it a fair shake and look into it a bit deeper.
That's good. That's very professional.
I want to. Actually, when I was first briefed on this, I thought, okay, still stupid idea, let's be honest, but could be way more stupid because you can see here, these are just bottles of oil. So in theory, you can use any scent you want, which would fix one of the biggest flaws I've seen so far because I don't like these scents.
DIY scents. The scent modding community is going to pop off huge.
Hey, I have some friends who are big in that community.
So do they only provide you with 6 scents?
They provide you with 6. There are some others coming on, like Blood is one of them.
Cool. Nice.
Great smell in theory. I think as soon as you actually smell it, if you're not familiar with the smell of blood, you'll be like, why did I do this?
It's only for veterans, only for hardcore aficionados of blood.
Even then, just ugh. But it doesn't authenticate, like it doesn't use any sort of K-Cup 2. Like if you remember the K-Cup 2.
Yeah, so there's no DRM for these scents.
There's no DRM for the scents.
Gotcha.
As much as Jeff Keighley popularized this by joking about it. No, it's not DLC. It's just you get the scent, you screw it in. Each one's coded to a number, and then you use an app to say, okay, this number is assigned to forest, this number is assigned to gunfire. So at least from the technical side of it, whether it's stupid or not, it is not nearly as bad as it could have been.
The whole AI in it, I think, is kind of clever, actually. Without them having to do all this kind of bespoke programming to each game to trigger all this stuff. I think that's kind of clever.
Which is vital, and also it means that it has on the box AI does this stuff, and unlike 95% of things that have come out in the last few years that says they use AI, no, this is actually AI, and it does some kind of deep learning stuff to look at a thing and come up with some new information about it. Which is what AI should be. It shouldn't just be, we have an algorithm that does a thing, which a whole lot of people say, like, hey, we have AI. You have a program.
I'm still smelling this, I gotta say. I was distracted by half of that sentence.
Let me try to find the one that's air clearing and see if that helps.
Oh yeah, the antidote scent you were telling us about.
I don't even know if it works. Maybe it just smells worse. This is a clean air scent.
Let's get my book out of the way. So
oh,
it doesn't
yeah.
get stuff dripped on it.
That's not good either.
That doesn't smell like clean air.
It's not great.
It smells like a scented candle.
Cool. Well, I'm going to put a stop to this right now.
That's fair. It is very chemically, but we'll keep looking.
Will Greenwald, this is available now. GameScent.
Yep, and apparently they're going to make a movie scent soon.
Okay.
Which is the exact same thing with different scents included.
5D coming soon to movie theaters. It's available now. We have a write on PC Mag. People can read more about this. My head is all sorts of spinning from these aromas, as it were.
Oh, no, I used it for 5 minutes in my apartment and I got a headache. So,
so on that, Will, thanks for joining us and explaining this. We're taking a little bit of a break, but we're going to set up for our next segment. But yeah, GameScent. Hello and welcome back to the Pop-Off. I'm still Jordan Miner. This is still Gabe. Zach, you're new.
I'm new. Hey.
You didn't have any aromas to bring to us.
No, just me.
Just you. But you like video games.
Yeah,
so
I do.
You're good to be here. So for this one, we're talking about the games of spring. That's why I got this little Cuphead flower. He does a lot of this. Spring, we don't typically always think of as like the kind of biggest period for video games.
Right.
You think about the holiday season, or like E3 for news.
Right.
But I think
Recipes.
True, pour one out. But I think in kind of past, maybe even like decade, I think publishers have been better about spreading out their lineups throughout the year. Of like, our fiscal year ends in March. Yeah. Let's put out some stuff there too. So there's some exciting games that are already out recently. Yeah. They're coming out in the next few weeks. So we're just gonna talk about some of these hot spring games. So I think the hottest one that both of you have been playing or played is Dragon's Dogma, the second. Dragon's Dogma 2.
Yes.
A remake. I've been playing a lot of the first one, and I've been told that this second one is almost like a remake, basically.
It is, in essence, Dragon's Dogma 2 is the Dragon's Dogma that they didn't get to make.
The originally. Dragon's Dogma.
It is the Dragon's Dogma. So it's good that you're playing, Dark Arisen, the original. I would say that if you like that, you should probably just skip straight to Dragon's Dogma 2, depending on the platform that you're playing. There are some technical issues that it's dealing with, that you're dealing with if you're playing on PC, which is one of the reasons I didn't score it as highly as I would have liked, because the gameplay itself is amazing. But I just wish that it wasn't so CPU intensive on PCs. Other than that, it's a phenomenal game.
Yeah, the kind of Monster Hunter adjacent combat with this kind of open world, kind of Western fantasy thing. It's not quite as punishing as like a Souls game or like an Elden Ring necessarily.
But it's punishing in a different way. It's challenging the player to. Well, it doesn't hold your hand a lot, and it's difficult, I think, for a lot of people to come to terms with that.
Friction, we like to call this in game design. Yeah.
And I think the first game had a lot of that, but yeah, the second game is so much. It's realized. And what's funny is I never really I wasn't interested in the first Dragon's Dogma. Like, I've heard it kind of has a cult status.
Yeah, freaks like that game.
Yeah, freaks and geeks love that game. I was like, I don't know about it. But I got my hands on Dragon's Dogma 2 at a preview event a few months ago. And it was my first time really dipping my toes into that world. And I was immediately hooked.
Okay.
And that was just on a preview build. I was just surprised by everything that was going on and how well it worked, meshed together. Like, it's kind of the game people think, like, when they're like, oh man, we want these companies to like make a AAA game, but like challenge, or like, it's what they're begging for. Like, this is it. And
I think like the phenomenon of Souls games has kind of primed the audience to be more accepting for the kind of stuff that this game does.
Right. But see, even in Souls, I feel like, and maybe I might be wrong in my Souls take, but I always felt like the people I knew who were like really into Souls games, it's almost like memorization, like you're remembering battle patterns and stuff and trying to exploit that. But Dogma, because it's an open world, and it feels like it's living, and things just sort of happen in the open world that you can't expect and you can't prepare yourself for. So in that regard, I think
it's more emergent.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, also Monster Hunter World, also they got a lot of people willing to accept a genre that previously had been just for freaks and really off-putting. And, they got it working. I know we're all big kind of RE engine heads here. They're Capcom's new engine they've used for their remakes and for Street Fighter 6.
Since Resident Evil 7, I think. Yeah.
But does it seem like, I know like the performance issues, do you think maybe it's this engine? Is this the first open world game they've made with this engine?
I believe so,
It is. I mean, I think that Monster Hunter Rise uses it as well,
It
but
does.
Rise uses it in much smaller spaces.
Yeah.
So it's like little pocket kind of areas, whereas World it's basically one seamless world. And then when you get into the map, there's really no cutoffs to like, well, now you're in a loading screen and now it's this and that and you gotta wait for it to. It's like once you boot up the game, you're in the world. And it's massive. It's really enormous. And in that respect, I can see why it's as taxing as it is.
Mm-hmm.
But I was talking with Matt Buzzy about this earlier.
Matt Buzzy, let's get him in here.
Yeah. Hello.
The Matt Buzzy. Woo!
The biggest strain actually comes from cities.
Buzzy, you played Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh, yes.
You like it a lot?
I played the first one some and liked what they were cooking, but for various reasons, a lot of there's a lot of reasons a lot of people didn't get into that one fully, right? And I think this one captures both in size and refinement, like what they wanted out of that.
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying it. I agree with a lot of Gabe's takes. Performance, a bit of a bummer. The DLSS implementation, but the world is it's like a adventurer and exploration sim. I think it takes like you were talking about Souls. I think it takes that side of the game with the animations and the difficulty and the combat challenges and kind of de-emphasizes that. The combat's still really fun and fast and cool. And jumping on monsters is sick, but it takes some of that difficulty in the combat and puts it on exploration. It has that very like, what's that over there? I want to go see it.
Right.
Like Skyrim kind of energy. And there's a reward there. There's a cave, there's a chest, there's something cool to find. I'm really digging it. Put a lot.
Cool. Well, get out of here. We'll bring you back for the next
Oh,
one.
what a great guy.
So that's the game really for the season, I think.
Yeah,
Is
definitely,
that's the one people can be
definitely.
playing. So, we wanted to kind of start off with that, have a good conversation about that. But there's other games coming out, the next couple of weeks I think are worth sort of highlighting. I think the next maybe most relevant is Rise of the Ronin. Which
Right.
Gabe, you also reviewed.
I did also.
PS5 exclusive.
Yes.
I had forgotten until trying to update our best PC games list. You weren't quite as hot on that, but you still gave it a pretty good score. You gave it a 3.5 out of 5.
I feel like for me, like as a big fan of Team Ninja's games, I think that the combat is a little bit of a step down. It's a step back. It's easier and a little more simplified. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's like not challenging, because it will still kick your butt left and right. But there's less mechanics that you need to learn, and they're not as important as they were in previous games. So it's a little more lenient in that respect. I really like the open world overall, but it also uses open world design from like 2 generations ago that I think are a little tired now. Like, way markers, and you got to go clear out this village and then go on to the next village and clear that out from bandits or whatever's in the village. And it gets a little repetitive, a little tired. The setting is great, but it's also not told in a way that's all that interesting. Like if you've played Like a Dragon Ishin, it's that same setting. It's that time period where it's the end of the Tokugawa
The
Shogun.
Bakumatsu.
the Bakumatsu.
Oh,
the
so Shogun on Hulu. FX's
Shogun,
Shogun
there we go.
on Hulu.
Let's run a banner on the cross that.
Yeah, it's the end of that era. It's the end of the Tokugawa shogunate. And it's a very interesting and very tumultuous kind of setting, but the story itself is just like, not really that interesting.
It's also surprisingly ugly, and
Okay.
performance-wise,
Yeah.
it doesn't really run that. I mean, Dogma, like, it's a gorgeous game, and
Right.
I think that the general understanding is that it's CPU limited,
Right.
which is causing a
exactly
lot of the
right.
performance issues. But Rise of Ronin doesn't really have that excuse because it looks like a game that was made maybe 10 years ago or something like that. And in keeping some of those open world, those older aged open world principles, it does feel dated when you're playing it too. I do warm up to it. I think the combat is not as brutal as Neo.
Right.
I compared it to Stranger of Paradise,
Okay.
which is also
Team Ninja
joint,
another
yeah.
Team Ninja joint,
Yeah.
which I thought the combat was fun in that. And surprising, I think in simplifying the combat, there's a surprising amount of depth to it. You can really make a build that's all your own. In Strangers of Paradise, that was a big kind of
Absolutely.
like, whoa, there's like
Absolutely, yeah.
14 different or 15 different jobs you can cycle through, and they all played differently and felt differently. Rise of the Ronin kind of feels like that. I felt it has it really starts to bloom spring. It really ding, 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 ding. It really starts to bloom as you get into it, but it's got one of the worst openings I've played in a long time, and very bad voice acting, very bad English voice acting.
Okay, but not like fun bad, just kind of bad.
It's almost offensively bad.
Oh, bad.
It's
Wow.
like
I can't even say it on the video.
Wow. Well, okay. So that sounds not as good, but not like horrible.
It's not horrible.
Yeah,
It's a very
it's not horrible.
very
Okay.
powerful B
games are
energy.
great.
Which yes, it's
B
good.
games are fantastic.
And that's
We need
what
more
I'm saying.
of them.
That's what I'm saying. It
And part of B games is not always looking as great as some
Right,
other stuff,
right.
and that's okay.
E games? Ding 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 ding.
Oh wow. Great. So I think kind of the genesis for this episode was the fact that both those games came out on the same day.
yeah.
Also coming out on that day, Princess Peach Showtime. for the
Yeah,
Nintendo
again, I
Switch.
feel like Nintendo kind of let that game out, like let it out to die.
Well, no, I think it's dying to us as grown, childless men. I played a bit of so we have a review coming. It's not up yet, but I played a bit of the demo for this game. I think that this game, and not at all in an insulting or condescending way, is they made a game for like little girls who saw that Mario movie or whatever and wanted to play a game as Peach.
Yeah.
and a game that could be like literally their first video game ever.
No, right.
Of like, Mario Brothers Wonder has a lot of accessibility stuff, but it's still like a precision platformer.
Yes.
Whereas this game is very forgiving, is really much about the different sort of, the whole structure of you're doing these sort of stage plays, and you have these different outfits that have different mechanics, like the sword fighter, like in the demo, the sword fighter one, it's like a kind of beat 'em up thing.
And it sounds a lot more empowering to Peach rather than the other
the Peach DS game where her insane fluctuating
her
emotions were so out of control. She harnessed the power of that. But yeah, it's a lot. It's yeah, and then the other one, you're like a baker, so you're kind of doing these like cake decorating mini games, and there's a whole assortment of power ups. And it was interesting to me of them making a game that they knew wasn't going to be very difficult, but how can they still make it interesting? And I think having this, like leaning into the variety of stuff was how they solved that. I think it's a really cool solve. It's from Good Feel, who did Kirby's Epic Yarn and those Yarn.
They did the Yoshi Yarn.
They did those Yarn Yoshi games. So, it's got a good sort of stagecraft.
It's a nice low stakes game. I mean, when I felt like Nintendo kind of just forgot about it, it was sort of like was just released without much fanfare for a Mario game.
Yeah.
Even if it doesn't have Mario in it. But I guess we'll get into it because Nintendo Switch's lineup is sort of light as far as we know.
Yeah. But yeah, so that came out on that same day, and it's a cool little triumvirate. So we got another list of games here that aren't out, and we haven't played them. So I think for this, we should try to keep it to just hottest takes. What is I'm gonna throw out a game name, say a sentence, what do you think about it?
Hot takes.
I'm gonna start with it. Don't say the word I think you'll say when I throw this game out here. Stellar Blade.
Oh.
Listen, it's got my seal of approval. I'm okay with it.
That's a good strap line.
I like action games. It's basically what is it? Like even though it looks like Nier, it's not Nier. It looks more like Sekiro with a Bayonetta character. Not technically like literally
This is
Bayonetta,
sort of like Korean Bayonetta, I think. And it's interesting from an action standpoint. We haven't gotten a real pure action brawler type game since maybe Bayonetta 3.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Right, I'd agree with that.
And definitely nothing for the PlayStation.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 5, of course, is not pictured here. But I'm interested in it. I want to see how the gameplay comes together, and it's also the first game from the developer.
Yes, and Sony's helping them out.
Yeah, which is it's interesting in the whole. I mean, I don't mean to take too much time, but taking a step back, just the whole Asian countries outside of Japan making games.
Yeah, Korea and
AAA
China,
games and stuff like that. So I think Celebrate is going to be a big step in that regard.
I mean, same with that Wukong.
Yes,
Wukong game, yeah. But that's not in spring.
Yeah,
so
that came out already.
No, it
it's
didn't.
not.
No, I thought it did.
No, Wulong. How dare you?
Oh
sir.
boy.
So Steller Blade is April, I believe. We have a story on PC Mag that will have all the dates for all these games, so I'm not going to remember them. Hellblade, Senua's Saga, Xbox's last chance. Those games are. Those are like almost elevated B games to me.
That's
that
what I was
first
gonna
one,
say,
and
yeah.
I think this one's also kind of budget price, which is I think reassuring that they're like we didn't blow up the scope of this too much. It's like an intimate sort of psychological
Well, I'm interested
thing.
you say that, but
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what the actual development cost of that
true.
game is because
Yeah.
but you're right about it. I felt like that first Hellblade game felt like a B game,
Mhm.
and it was great. It had
Yeah.
very interesting audio. I remember the audio being really cool, and just like an interesting story. Very linear, but whatever.
Yeah.
And this one, I feel like this one has a chance to net a bigger audience because it's sort of
It's an Xbox tentpole game now.
Exactly,
It looks gonna be a graphical showpiece, surely.
which could be good and bad because on one hand, we're talking about the first game. We don't know anything about the sequel. We haven't played it. We don't, and they barely even showed in gameplay. To be honest,
Coming out in 2 months.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that it has a great B game appeal. But I'm only worried slightly about it being a tentpole because that comes with tentpole expectations that some people might not be able to. Their brains kind of break when they think about AAA games, and if you don't, I don't want to get carried away.
Just the whole notion that those games are about mental health is really interesting to me. But then they're called Hellblade, which is really funny.
Right.
Well, mental health is hell.
Speaking of, but you know what's not going to be help, I bet, is Endless Ocean Luminous. That'll probably be a very relaxing, very tranquil kind of
I hope people know that
undersea
game comes
exploration
out,
game. Yeah.
because I think it's really cool. Endless Ocean is not a Nintendo game, but it's published by them.
Yes.
But it's been on like the Wii.
The
You know, like,
Wii. I think it was 2 games on the
Yeah,
Wii, and they're
okay.
making the 3rd one for the Switch coming out in May.
I think it's so cool that that game is getting a sequel at all. It speaks to Nintendo's launch this 2024 release window of just remakes of
Just do whatever you want. Doors
Yeah,
open. Do whatever you want. BC games.
like another Code got a remake,
Yeah.
2 remakes. So give me a sequel to this. And I think the big draw is the multiplayer. for
Yes,
Endless
that's
Ocean.
new. The online.
Which I
Yeah.
think is cool. And not like in a live service way, just in a like, wow.
We're just gonna go dive in, get wet.
Me and my 16 friends just hanging out underwater.
Yeah.
Or maybe 32. I forget.
So I think it's 30. I think it's 30 or somewhere in that
Something like
ballpark.
that.
But yeah, you see anything from this game? You see Endless Ocean?
I actually have not been following it very much. I just know the name from the Wii.
You gotta open your heart up to
Open my heart. I gotta give it a chance.
a peaceful game.
You only saw Steller Blade. That was it.
That was it. Stellar Blade is all I have my eyes on.
A peaceful game. Well, I mean, speaking more Nintendo remakes, we got Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remake coming out in May. I famously hate Mario RPGs.
It's crazy that you even start a sentence like that.
I don't like any of them at all. I think Mario is about fast jumping.
Very strong opinion. there.
Mario is about being nimble and jumping and immediate fun, not reading reams and reams of text about block people.
What?
And the
It's
Count
cute. It's
Bleck.
funny.
All those characters are dumb. The Goombas, all these people lose their minds about Koopa Troopas wearing sweatshirts in these games. I think they're all losers.
Says the guy who told me to open my heart just the moment.
Yeah, right. The Endless Ocean.
Yes. So I don't care at all about that game.
Okay.
But a lot of people really do.
Sure.
If anybody have anything good to say about Paper Mario?
It's
remake?
a big GameCube game.
Yes.
And I wonder if it's just going to be that GameCube game or if it's going to change stuff. Because the Super Mario RPG got a full facelift. That was actually cool, but the game was virtually the same as the Super Nintendo game. So I wonder if there's going to be any changes at all to make that $60 purchase worthwhile. But I do like that game, so
I'm more curious because I've heard so many of these Nintendo like RPG fans say that the older ones were way better than the newer Paper Mario games. And my only experience is like limited with like Sticker Star, which everybody's like,
But that's the worst
"Ooh,
one."
that
Because
was-
they stripped out all the RPG stuff.
Yeah.
But to
I thought
me,
they were appealing to Jordan.
Yes.
You probably love that game.
I don't mind them.
boy.
I don't mind them because I don't need Mario to level up. I don't care.
So I'm curious to see, because I actually didn't play the original. I'd like to see how this stacks up to the games that I have played, the more recent ones. That's kind of where I stand on that, just more like open-minded.
That's healthy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Open heart.
Open
heart.
Speaking of an open heart, I got a list of indie games coming out between April, May period that I think are pretty cool. Another Crab's Treasure. This is a Souls-like where you play as a crab and your different shells, your different weapons.
That sounds fascinating.
I'm into it. I've always wanted to be a crab,
Mhm.
and I think this is a great opportunity for me to live that fantasy.
Hmm.
The fact that it's a Souls-like is a little disheartening to me because
Why?
I just don't like those games.
Me neither, but I think they've talked a lot about their different sort of accessibility stuff they're doing.
And yeah,
so
I
I think they're not going to have to be like super
I
challenging.
think Souls-likes in general have become much more accessible than they were.
Yeah.
Because
Because they got to sell them. They got to
Yeah,
sell
they
them
gotta
to
sell.
people.
They gotta sell
yeah.
to people like me. People
Yeah,
like you. who
yeah.
hate
I mean,
these
those Star
games.
Wars games are Souls-like in a way too. Have you? What about a dream of having a giant drill that can just tunnel through things and spin through sheetrock?
Don't you
Never had
mean
this
Mr. Driller?
No, I mean more Drill Dozer, which is the better touch point for Pepper Grinder, another indie game that might be out by the time this comes out. Actually, I think that's late March.
Pepper Grinder? Did you play?
I did a preview of it. I have a preview of that on PC Mag, but that's cool. The drill is a cool way to do locomotion. You're almost like a dolphin, but through the land, like you're doing these sort of
Yeah.
undulating movements. World of Goo 2. The first World of Goo was one of the first WiiWare games.
Yes. Yeah.
That game was really great. You're building these goo towers. It's a lot of like physics puzzles.
Yeah.
It had this kind of weird, dark backstory
Yeah,
about the
it's
goo
fun.
balls.
Okay.
Now, just wait a minute. All right.
Fascinating.
World of Goo. There's another indie game I forgot to write down. I think you had mentioned it before we started.
Halibut.
Yes, Harold
Halibut.
is like
Fishing game?
it's like a claymation game.
Oh.
So they've been working on this for like years and years and years.
For a very long time. It's constantly previewed at all these, prestigious events. But I think it finally got a release date of maybe sometime in April. As far as I know, I think it's a like a point and click adventure game where you're like underwater and like.
So there is water involved. These are not just arbitrarily named Halibut for no reason.
Well, we don't know yet.
No.
There might be a reason why he's named after a fish.
Put Wallace and Gromit in the game. And then the last thing I had on my list was Multiverses comes out for real this time at the end of May. I did the review for that for the beta, the early access,
the preview, whatever they call it.
That's up on Mag already. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I love platform fighters. I love Smash Brothers. I just like that style of fighting game. I don't think this is the best one. I like those Nickelodeon ones a little bit more.
I appreciate an alternative to Super Smash Bros. If you don't like it. And I feel like if Nicktoons is to Melee, Multiverses is to Brawl. Is that fair?
Interesting. I think that Multiverses has some cool ideas with its like team battle stuff, and a lot of its moves. See, this thing I didn't like about it so much though. A lot of its moves were like on cooldown.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. This is the game with the cooldown.
Yeah, and that kind of messed up the pacing. But I think what's exciting about this game is just the potential of the roster.
Yes.
Warner Brothers has as all these gluttonous conglomerates owns a lot of really cool intellectual property.
Right, like LeBron James.
Like LeBron James was in the game already. The Looney Tunes, Cartoon Network, Game of Thrones, all sorts of stuff that you point, but like I know what that is.
Yes.
Arya Stark. So I think there's a lot of potential to get some cool characters in there. I think they should put Tony Soprano in the game. They should put Logan. They should put all sorts of HBO characters.
We start the Tony Soprano campaign. If it hasn't started,
it's already started. I have a whole moveset that I've been tweeting out.
We need this. If you see that moveset, tweet it out. We need to start the campaign for Tony Soprano and Multiverse.
Step it up.
Yep. So that's coming out as well. So that's my list of spring games. I don't know if I missed anything big or any of these will get anyone away.
No, I don't think any other game is coming out in spring.
Okay. Are you trying to no-sell me here?
No, I know.
I'm sure there are others.
I mean, if we missed them, go to PCMag.com. Check out our list of all the games coming out for the rest of the year. Our big games calendar. We update that all the time. That's got what's coming out. So check that out. But it sounds like Dragon's Dogma 2 is really
Dragon's Dogma 2 is the game of the spring.
It's the man for all seasons. So we'll let you get back to that. But Zach and Gabe, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
And we'll talk to you next time.